Lynae, the former assassin turned schoolgirl, has finally arrived in the debut banner for version 3.0, equipped with a vibrant moveset, an incredibly fluid playstyle, and of course, a surprising amount of damage. She's got a kit with plenty of complex bells and whistles, but in practice, she has multiple playstyles that vary in complexity depending on what role she'll play on the battlefield. As a Spectro, basic attack-focused unit with an absurd number of team buffs, she'll synergize best with units that deal Resonance Liberation damage like Iuno and Xiangli Yao, or Sub-DPSs who can buff her damage like Sanhua. With that, welcome to our full-scope, comprehensive guide to Lynae, the newest addition to Wuthering Waves, and I'm here to break down everything when it comes to how she works, what her best equipment will be, and the steps you need to take across her team building and rotations to make the most out of her insane buffing potential. As always, if you're enjoying this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Lynae, with her baseline kit, focuses on the buildup and expenditure of two unique resources called Overflow and Lumiflow via her Forte circuit to skate, bounce, and blow up the battlefield through her colorful attacks. So her Forte is where we'll begin. Lynae, when she enters combat, begins in the optical sampling stage. While in this state, she can build up Overflow to grant her access to a powerful charged attack. Her first method of building this resource is through her normal attacks. Her basic attack is a simple 3-hit attack chain. Heavy attack inputs while her Forte isn't filled will simply trigger basic attacks. Her mid-air attack plunges on the target dealing damage, and her dodge counter advances her basic attack chain. Another ability that generates overflow is a resonant skill, Lynae style pallets. This ability simply damages the enemy and can also advance her to the second stage of her attack chain. The third method is the best. Lynae's intro skill simply grants her 100 points. When Lynae's overflow is full, she gains access to a heavy attack, Spark Collision, that can be charged up to 3 levels depending on how much overflow it consumes, dealing more damage based off the charge. While charging this ability, she converts 15 points of overflow to 12.5 points of lumiflow every 0.2 seconds, becoming immune to interruption and taking 50% less damage. This attack will also send Lynae into Kaleidoscopic Parade, where she skates on the ground faster than regular sprinting, and at higher levels of Lumiflow, she skates faster. Lynae also recovers Lumiflow while moving on the ground, 20% per second, and also when she uses any of her unique roller skate normal attacks. Her enhanced basic is a 5-hit attack chain that grows in range as her Lumiflow increases. Her heavy attack consumes stamina to repeatedly shoot a target, and releasing the move triggers a graffiti blast. Both of these attacks are considered basic attack damage. Her mid-air attack, when held, attacks the target in the air with basic attack damage, and when tapped, simply plunges down. Her dodge counter will also advance her basic attack chain when used. Lynae's enhanced resonant skill, Additive Color, and her intro skill will also generate Lumiflow. This resource will also drain by 20% a second if she ever stays still for a short period of time. Building up this Lumiflow is very important as it allows her to consume 1/3 of her bar to jump in combat and bounce on the target, dealing basic attack damage and generating a resource called True Color. Each of these bounces gradually increase in damage and can trigger dodges. The second bounce also groups enemies. Building up 3 stacks of True Color is key as it gives Lynae access to Visual Impact, a massive nuke activated by using a normal attack or skill while in the air with 3 stacks. This attack also grants a 40-point Toon Break boost to the entire team, buffing their Toon damage. All of these attacks, alongside Lynae's intro skill, will also inflict Photochromic Flux on targets, which will either apply Toon Rupture or Toon Strain onto enemies, depending on how you specified Lynae in the skill menu. If using Rupture, Lynae will nuke the enemy with an attack whenever anyone on the field Toon Breaks an enemy, and if using Strain, the damage dealt to the target will increase based off Lynae's Toon Break boost and the other teammates who can interact with Strain on the team. Visual Impact is easily one of the strongest attacks in Lynae's kit, but it has a cooldown. When triggering the ability with 3 True Color stacks while on cooldown, you instead use Iridescent Splash, which grants no Toon Break boost buff and deals much less damage. All True Color stacks are removed upon exiting the roller skate mode. The last part of Lynae's kit is easily her most simple. Her Liberation deals a nuke of spectral damage and grants a 24% all damage bonus to the entire team for 30 seconds. It can also be followed up with a special basic attack that unfortunately does very little damage, so it's oftentimes recommended to skip it. When you factor in all of Lynae's abilities, resources, and interactions with each other, she has a simple playstyle as a sub-DPS that focuses on intro skilling in, capping out her overflow with a skill, and then immediately using Spark Collision and her ultimate to enter Kaleidoscopic Parade and fully charge up her Lumiflow. Then you'll jump 3 times, and basic attack in midair on the 3rd jump to use Visual Impact and then outro skill to another teammate, granting them 15% all damage and 25% Resonance Liberation damage Amp, one of the most general outro skills in the game. This also ends Roller Skate mode. When it comes to her inherent skills, her first causes visual impact to leave spray paint on the ground that inflicts photochromic flux on enemies for 5 seconds afterwards. She'll also increase the motorbike's energy tank by 600 points and automatically trigger roller skating mode if she's on the bike, restoring 20% of her Lumiflow. Her second causes her intro skill to grant 25% spectral damage for 9 seconds, and during Kaleidoscopic Parade, dodging with no input allows her to use Optic Camo for 15 seconds, giving her stealth in exploration. Lynae's a character with a huge amount of utility and some of the most impressive damage buffs in the game that make her an amazing general use case sub-DPS that can get fantastic results with almost anyone on the roster, but excels with liberation-focused damage dealers like Iuno or Xiangli Yao. However, she can be played as a main DPS, rebuilding a second Lumiflow meter following her first set of bounces to bounce 3 more times and trigger Iridescent Splash, extending her rotation. However, her performance isn't at the same level as some prior releases in this role, at least in the present. When it comes to actually building Lynae, starting off with her skill priority, you'll want to max out her Forte circuit as it's the primary source of her damage, and then her liberation as the second biggest source. From there, you'll max out her basic, then resonance skill, and her intro can be kept at level 6 or lower as it has very poor scaling to save on weekly boss mats. Now let's talk about Lynae's weapons, and it's clear that she has some of the best options in the game depending on what role you'd like her to play. Here's what the calculations are looking like using Static Mist and Phasic Homogenizer, the standard 5 stars, as a baseline. Credits to Pridewin. Let's explain these results starting off with her signature, Spectrum Blaster. This weapon provides an average base attack and crit rate, a 12% attack bonus, and a weapon effect that grants 36% basic attack damage when dealing it, and a stacking 8% team-wide all-attribute damage buff whenever a tune effect is inflicted. Lynae easily maximizes uptime on both effects, granting her a total of 60% damage increase across her rotation and 24% to her entire team. A perfect fit for both her sub-DPS and main DPS playstyles. The next best option is, surprisingly enough, the new standard 5-star weapon. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Phasic Homogenizer is better than every other limited weapon on Lynae. It gives a fantastic base attack and crit damage, main stat, 12% attack, and a 20% all-attribute damage bonus whenever a teammate uses a Tune Break skill, and everyone can use one of those. If you have great damage stats on your Lynae, this is the option to go for. The third best option will be tailored around Lynae's sub-DPS playstyle, and that will be the other standard weapon, Static Mist. This weapon has the same stats as her signature, but a passive ER effect instead. It also grants an attack buff to the recipient of her outro skill, further maximizing her buffing ability. Every other weapon on this list is quite literally not worth it, especially considering that Lynae's literal best weapons outside of her signature are the 2 standard pistols. Depending on how you want to use her, there's a standard weapon for it, and you can grab her signature if you just want her to do both. And when you can select a weapon to pull for on the standard weapon banner, just don't bother with other options. Now it's time to talk about Lynae's echoes, and she has 2 options depending on her role. In her most popular role as a sub-DPS, you'll go for Pact of Neon Light Leap, which grants a spectral damage bonus and an attack buff to her outro skills recipient that scales off their Tune Break boost stat. Lynae buffs this stat with her kit, making it a perfect fit for all of her teams. On the other hand, Rite of Gilded Revelation is her DPS set, focusing on building up stacks of spectral damage boost with basic attack, and then liberating at full stacks to grant a basic attack damage bonus, making it her ideal main DPS set. Regardless of the set you choose, you'll have close to identical builds. For Echo main stats, you'll want a crit 4 cost, 2 spectral 3 costs, and 2 attack 1 costs. When it comes to substats, you'll prioritize ER up to 130%, 120 of DPS, crit rate, damage, attack percentage, and basic attack damage rolls. Lynae can also benefit a small amount from liberation damage rolls, but don't go searching for these. The last area of investment when it comes to Lynae involves your wallet or a lot of saved Astrite. Her sequence nodes. Her S1 increases the damage multiplier of her jumps by 120% and also doubles the duration of her paint, additionally granting it grouping every 6 seconds. She's also immune to interruptions during her jumps and visual impact. In optical sampling state, she'll also immediately restore 120 points of overflow when out of combat for 2 seconds. Her second node grants her a 25% all damage amp and also grants her outro skill an additional 25% all damage amp, making her total buff 40% all damage, 25% liberation on her outro. Her S3 increases the damage multiplier of visual impact and iridescent splash by 90%, and when she's above or at 120 Lumiflow, she'll gain a stack of pre-mixed hue every second, with a cap of 25. Each stack increases her enhanced resonance skills damage by 55%, and when the attack is used, all stacks are removed. She loses a stack every half second when below 120 Lumiflow, and when out of combat, her gain speed is doubled and her depletion speed is halved. For her fourth node, she gains a 20% attack increase, and for her S5, her liberation gains a 70% damage multiplier. And for her sixth node, the big one causes uses her Graffiti Blast and Enhanced Mid-Air Heavy Attack to grant Color of Soul up to 3 stacks. Each stack increases the damage dealt through her jumps and Visual Impact by 30%, and after using Polychrome Leap or Visual Impact, all of her stacks are removed. When she uses Polychrome Leap, she also resets the charges of her Mid-Air Heavy Attack. She also stays in Kaleidoscopic Parade after using her outro skill, and her limit of Lumiflow triples from 120 to 360. If she uses her intro skill during Roller Skate mode, she'll also gain 120 Lumiflow. Now that we've covered Lynae's build, let's get into some of her teams and optimal rotations. And given her ability to buff general damage, she can work on almost any team in the game. However, we'll be focusing on the characters she supports best, like Iuno and Xiangli Yao, and the units that support her, like Sanhua and Shorekeeper. Lynae's best overall team on release will feature Ciaccona as the buffer, Iuno as the main DPS and healer, and Lynae as the sub-DPS. You'll want her on Rupture mode on the Pact of Neon Light Leap set. Start off the team's rotation on Ciaccona, repeatedly jump attacking until you have 3 Forte stacks. You'll then cancel the animation on her third plunge using a skill, then her Forte heavy attack, and then her Echo skill and Liberation. From there, you'll intro in on Lynae, immediately use her Liberation, and then use her Resonance skill followed by a fully charged heavy attack. Once you hit, immediately jump 3 times and then use Visual Impact in the air and then outro skill to Iuno. Once Iuno intros, use her enhanced skill, jump, and then fire 3 Moonbow attacks. Then you'll enhance skill, Liberation, and then fire 3 more Moonbow attacks. Then you'll skill again and fire 3 more shots. Then you'll outro skill back to Ciaccona. During the second rotation, simply basic attack on Ciaccona after introing in to get her second stack, then jump attack for her third, and then cancel that with the skill while repeating the rest of the rotation. Factor in Ciaccona's massive arrow buffs and Lynae's fantastic general buffing, this takes Iuno's damage to limits we haven't seen before. Another team Lynae performs fantastically in is with Shorekeeper as the support, Xiangli Yao as the DPS, and Lynae as the sub-DPS with the same requirements listed above. You'll start off this rotation by building up Concerto on Shorekeeper using a mix of basic attacks, skills, and heavy attacks before capping off her Concerto with your Liberation and Echo skill. Then you'll intro skill in on Lynae and repeat the same rotation indicated in the prior team, ending with an outro skill to Xiangli Yao. Xiangli Yao will then skill and trigger a heavy attack, canceling the heavy attack animation with his Liberation. Then you'll skill, follow up with a basic attack, then use a Hypercube. Then you'll basic attack 3 times and fire off another Hypercube. Then you'll simply skill, follow up again, and you know the rest. After you end his rotation, you'll then use either an Echo or his enhanced resonance skill and then swap back to Shorekeeper. If you're interested in the specifics of the Shorekeeper's rotation or playing this team with Verena, make sure to check out the guide linked in the comments below. As a general use case sub-DPS, you can also use Lynae in many other lineups featuring other DPS and support combos with the same rotation listed out here, so feel free to experiment given how broad her buffs are. The last team we'll be covering today is easily her most unique, and that'll be with Lynae as the main DPS, Sanhua as the sub-DPS, and Shorekeeper as the support. Lynae will be using Rupture mode and the Rite of Gilded Revelation set here. To start off this team's rotation, you'll basic attack 3 times on Shorekeeper, then cancel the third with a Resonance skill. Then you'll swap over to Sanhua and use her skill, Liberation, and then Detonation heavy attack. Then you'll swap back to Shorekeeper, and Sanhua should have a full Concerto meter off field. This is important. Fill up the rest of Shorekeeper's Concerto using basic attacks, heavy attacks, and her Liberation, and then intro skill to Lynae. Lynae will then basic attack twice, then fully charge her Spark Collision attack. Once she's flying, swap back to Sanhua, who should have her outro skill ready, and then use the Heron and then intro back to Lynae. Lynae will then Liberation, bounce 3 times, Visual Impact, and then perform 2 ground heavy attack chains, a full enhanced basic attack chain, and then bounce 3 more times and trigger her second weaker Forte nuke. This is effectively a double intro rotation, and unfortunately, it's the only way to fit in 2 Forte nukes into Lynae's rotation. And while it's not the strongest team out there, it has the potential to clear content on quite the budget, especially considering that Sanhua is free. Lynae is undoubtedly a character who has plenty of swap canceling potential given the incredible mobility of some of her attacks, but also some drawbacks as attacks like her jumps cannot be swapped off without ruining her rotation. Since this is an early guide, keep in mind that we won't be diving too deep into some more of her complex mechanics, but be on the lookout for more post-release follow-up content soon. At the end of the day, Lynae is one of, if not the most powerful sub-DPS released in Wuthering Waves that has an easy-to-pick-up playstyle, absurdly fast rotation, and also some of the widest team options available. She also ushers in and enables a new archetype of teams, Toon Break, and will remain one of the most meta-relevant units for the foreseeable future. She works with, quite literally, everybody, but the units that she shines the most with have never been more powerful. If you're looking to build 3.0 teams, you'll want her. If you want to pull Mornier, you'll want her. The only situation I can see where she isn't a must pull is if you have absolutely no interest at all in interacting with any of 3.0's mechanics. But if not, I think it's clear what we all need to do. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please hit that like and subscribe button. Peace out.